In this video, I'm going to tell you everything that you currently need to know about the gathering and crafting in Chrono Odyssey. This is going to be important in the beta and will likely be just as relevant when the game actually comes out. So let's jump in and let's begin, shall we? There's a couple of interesting things to know about the gathering and crafting in Chrono Odyssey. The developers have pretty much told us that this is going to be something that if you want to, you can do purely this from the start of the game till the end of the game, and at the end of the game, you'll be getting decent gear. My experience in the beta suggests it's going to be something you want to do alongside other types of content, so I think everybody should pay attention to this no matter what though. The gathering professions, or as the game calls them, the life skills, are these. They are butchering, gathering, logging, mining, and fishing. And as for the actual crafting, that's weapon crafting, armor crafting, accessory crafting, alchemy, cooking, and processing. Almost all of this is going to start with you going out and gathering resources. To do so though, you are going to need tools. For harvesting, which they call gathering, you will need a sickle. For butchering, you will need a butcher's knife. For logging, you'll need a logging axe. For mining, you'll need a pickaxe. And for fishing, you will need a fishing rod. You can buy these from a vendor in town, but you're only buying the basic version of this, right? You can then actually go ahead and craft tools, and you do so at the processing station. Processing itself is kind of like a catch-all for all of the refining and tool creating. So it's definitely going to be a skill that you're going to want to level up. And when it comes to the tools, yeah, you can literally just craft different tools at different levels. We'll come more on how crafting actually works later. For now, just know that you actually need a tool to go and gather, otherwise you can't pick up the resources. As for the gathering itself, it works very similar to other games. Let's say you want to mine some ore, you walk over to a corresponding rock, press E, and then the game will mine it for you and you just have to wait. For butchering, this is going to be based around killing animals and then skinning them. The level of the enemy is going to determine the quality or the rarity of the hide that you get. For gathering, it's the same kind of thing, except there's different various plants out in the world, some flax, some herbs, etc. For logging, there are different types of wood. I think we saw effectively light wood, mature wood, there's a blue wood which I forget the name of, and a red wood which is literally called redwood. For mining, there's iron, I think it goes up to like titanium, there's silver, and more, right? Fishing, the actual act of fishing is slightly different from the rest of those gathering professions. You don't just walk over and press E, you actually press F5. I don't want to call it a minigame because I think that's a bit much. Basically, you'll cast out into some water. As far as I can tell, the bar doesn't matter too much. It's just literally just distance. And then when it's in the water, it sort of goes through two phases. When you are about to get a hook, it'll change from one symbol to 3 little dots. And then once the 3 little dots change to another symbol with a timer, that's when you have to left click. And then the game itself will reel it in. It's very similar to New World, except in New World, you have to manually do the reeling in, and there's a little bit of a mini game. Here, it's very, very basic, if I'm honest. I much prefer New World in this regard specifically. Now, the interesting thing about like harvesting and gathering and mining and all this kind of stuff, there are no level restrictions on nodes. And what this means is if you find the highest tier node, it doesn't matter if you're level 1, you can still harvest it, you can still mine it, etc. Now, the key thing here though is that it will take absolutely ages. I'm talking 5+ minutes. This is not a quick process if you are very low level. All of the professions have a level and you need to level them up over time. There is XP that you get per node, per harvest, and the more you do, the more your bar will go up and you'll level up the next level. Leveling up will speed you up when you go gathering and harvesting, as will a better tool. For the tools, the higher tier tool is going to have more perks. These perks, I suspect, and I didn't actually do it, but I suspect that these will help you with the gathering yield, the speed, etc. Right, you get your resources, we've got the gathering out the way. Now you need to process it before you can craft. There is literally a processing station. At the processing station, there are various tabs. There is a tool tab, which obviously does the tools that we just talked about. A resource tab, which is basically refining certain things like creating oil or grit, which is going to help with various different crafts. There is a mining tab, a logging tab, a gathering tab, and a butchering tab. In the mining tab, you're literally going to change your ore into ingots. In the logging tab, you're going to change your wood into lumber. In the gathering tab, you're often actually just going to turn your like fibers into cloth, and butchering is turning your hide into actual leather. What's interesting is when you actually process anything or gather anything or craft anything, you actually get class XP, so you can level up your character this way, and you get your profession XP for that chosen profession. Okay, so we've gone and gathered the resources, we've now processed them. Now it's time to do some actual crafting. For this though, there are various different stations. There is an armor station, a weapon station, an accessory station, a cooking station, and an alchemy station. If you're ever wondering where these are, by the way, you can look on the map, zoom into the town that you're in, and they've got various different icons on there. At the armoring station, what you'll see is various different kind of like sub-tabs, which are basically going to be the slots that you can craft at that station. So at the armoring station, it's the head, the chest, the hands, the legs, the feet, and a back, which is basically a cape. And what you'll see on the left-hand side, you'll see the bunch of recipes that currently exist that you know. There are some that are learnable. For example, I think you get to learn extra potions as part of the quest, but effectively you can just pick here any one that you currently have available. I don't know if there's any sensible way of gaining more at the moment. I don't actually know, to be honest, if these recipes will exist when the game goes live fully, but in the beta, I suspect it'll be exactly the same. Now, when you are crafting here, there's a couple of things you want to look at. There's various different tiers, so you'll start off possibly with the grey tiers, which will have an equipment score of between 1 and 5, and it will have a level required as well. It will also tell you the stats that you're going to get, so you're going to get like physical defense, magic defense, crit rate, damage, etc. It will also tell you how much XP you're going to get, both for the actual crafting profession that you're doing right there and for your class XP. Sort of in the bottom left, it'll tell you what materials you need, and in the bottom right, it'll tell you how much gold it's going to cost. For armor crafting specifically, there is actually light, medium, and heavy gear, and your class can actually wear any of this. You're not restricted to any of them, by the way. You can literally wear heavy as a ranger if you like, and you can wear light armor as a swordsman if you like. What's interesting though is that the stats will be typically different. So on light armor, going to be more focused on offensive stats, and for heavy armor, it'll be more focused on defensive stats. Medium, somewhere in between. Now, as you progress, so you go into the greens and the blues, you'll start noticing that when you craft, there's a couple of different extra stats. Well, not really stats, but perks. Yes, you'll have more stats for your like physical defense and stuff like that, but you'll also see effectively gamble crafting here. You'll see that you have a chance of getting a jewelry slot, and you'll see two different types of perks. You'll see one called a prefix or preface. This is a perk that you can actually move from one item to another, and will have like a deep orange color on the item. And then you'll see a general attribute, which these are kind of like permanent, but they're not as good as the other ones. Again, as you level up though, keep in mind that the equipment score will go up. High is obviously generally better, but the level required will also increase. So I think you probably need for the blue stuff level 15, and I think it's level 10 for the green. As for the materials actually needed to craft, there's one that I've not really spoke about. Oftentimes it's a combination of like two main materials. So like, let's say you're crafting a heavy piece, it might be some metal ingots with some hide. But then there's also another one, which is this kind of like blue looking thing, which is called arch. I'm not really sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly. This, you don't have to worry about too much if you're going to do your own gathering, because it's just something that you occasionally get when you gather. As you harvest, as you go out in the world, you chop down trees, you mine, you'll sometimes get this arch alongside what you should get from that node as well. If for some reason you're trying to craft and you don't have these materials, then maybe you didn't do the gathering yourself. Early on, there is a bounty board. If you do bounties, the lady at the bounty board is effectively a vendor, and she can sell you some of the mats that you need to craft. So if you can't bother going gathering in the beta and you just want to get some gear, that might be a way of shortcutting that. To be honest, the rest of the crafting is effectively the same. The interesting thing about crafting a weapon though is that you can actually craft weapons of all different classes. If you're trying to craft one for yourself, make sure you craft weapons that your class can use. The swordsman, for example, cannot use the crossbow, so make sure you pay attention to which tab and which category you're in. But at the weapon crafter, you can craft, as I said, any weapon. Each class will have 3. At the accessory crafter, you can basically craft a belt or waist slot, a neck or necklace, and then rings. You actually wield 2 rings, by the way. But the crafting there is effectively the same, except instead of using like iron, you'll probably end up using silver. There's different kinds of materials. I'm not going to go into exactly the types, but if you're familiar with New World, it's very similar here. One interesting station is the cooking station. Here you can actually craft food, drinks, and then feasts. Worth noting, in the beta, I didn't see any feast. I don't know what they are. I don't know what they will be. But food and drink, these are going to give you temporary buffs. Some materials will actually just like instantly restore some health. Some will give you like health regen over time. The nectar of fortification though, for example, might give you recovering HP, but also give you +1 strength, dex, intellect, and wisdom. Now there is something called extra crafting luck bonus, but I don't really know what that is. I'm not sure how that interplays with the gathering and crafting right now. Cooking though, yes, you can obviously get some stuff from fishing, but often this actually isn't tied to a gathering profession at all. In the world, you'll often just find places where you'll pick up an orange, some lemons, but you can obviously harvest them as well if you find like a berry bush and that kind of thing. There is also an alchemy station. The alchemy station at the minute sort of seems a little bit basic. There's two types of main ways of crafting the potion, right? First, you're going to need the solvent, which seems to be converting herbs into that solvent. And then for the actual health potions or whatever potion it is that you want, you'll need some kind of actual berry. And here there is also the tiers. So there's like normal stuff, then there's green, then there's blue, etc. In my opinion, the rate in which you actually craft potions is not equivalent to the rate that you consume potions. So a bit of me thinks that this might be a very valuable profession. You might make a lot of money if this is something you pump a lot into. There are different kinds of potions, so it's not just all health. There's mana, carnage, attack, and defense. And I think battle as well. I'm not 100% sure what some of those do. Whilst you can obviously just craft for yourself, it is worth knowing that there is going to be a trading post where you can actually sell your gear, your materials, etc. What you cannot do is individually trade to a friend. So I think this will be good to try and stop RMT, but it might be bad if you're trying to have like a guild when you're all trying to help each other. Either way, I think that's going to be a major factor going forward for the long-term health of the game, whether or not the trade post is active, and whether or not it actually does prevent bots and RMT and stuff like that. But you can sell your goods, which is very important as both a gatherer and a crafter. Overall, it looks like the actual crafting is going to be a lot of gambling. The gear score is going to have a range, but will effectively be random. The chances of getting perk slots and stuff like that are going to be random. And at the minute, we're not sure if there's any way of reducing that randomness. I kind of suspect at the end game there will be, but right now, no. At the minute, I'm not 100% sure what leveling up some of these professions does. Obviously for the gathering and harvesting and stuff like that, that's going to speed you up as you go ahead and do that. But for the actual crafting, I'm not sure what your level does. I'm going to assume that it will help you with the RNG when it's what perks are you going to get. Because sometimes you might not even get the perk. Sometimes you might get the perk. Maybe it'll help you with it being a good perk. At this point, I don't really know. Well, I might not know that, but the rest of this video was everything I know currently about gathering and crafting. It is something you're probably going to do alongside your character as you level up. For example, if you get to the first boss and you're struggling, maybe you want to craft some basic gear because it'll help you with that. And later on, you get a little bit of a power spike if you get to level 15 and you craft some of the gear that requires level 15. So you might want to do that as well. Let me know your thoughts. Have a most beautiful day. Like and subscribe. Goodbye.